There we go, second upload in a row. You'll be seeing this on Saturday, and the one I just recorded is for Friday. Sunday should be good. Sunday's gonna have 2 recordings. One for Sunday, one for Monday, and then Tuesday we'll be back to normal. I'm trying to get this whole schedule thing sorted so I can get everything ticked off during the day, but without it being too much of a hassle, right? Because there's certain days where it is indeed going to be a hassle to get most of my stuff done. And why? Like, what? It doesn't have to be a hassle. Like, with proper planning, it doesn't have to be a hassle. I don't have to, like, there is no necessity for me to actually record every single day, right? In an ideal world, yes. Every single day, no. There's certain days there's going to be more of a hassle than others. So I'm not saying don't do it. Right? There's a difference. I'm not saying don't do it, but do it differently. Right? Manage your schedule a lot better. Some days you're going to be able to do it. Some days you're not. The days that you're not, see if you can change anything up with the way you normally do it, and voila. Right? But yeah. Since I already did the recap, I'm gonna essentially be talking about topic, and this topic is mainly just, so this is related to the whole like setting, or well, something in the Atomic Habits book, which was systems, not goals, right? And it's an interesting way of thinking that it's the main way I think progress now, because before progress for me started with setting up goals. So it was like, write down all the goals that you were interested in, that you wanted to achieve or whatever, to have an idea of what exactly you wanted to do, and see exactly like the applicable steps to get that done. I think that's wonderful, perfect. Like if you do it, that's wonderful. Wonderful, that's great, right? But that never really translated to doing any sort of progress, right? So I'd write down these goals down. I'd write down all this stuff down on like a piece of paper or whatever, in like a document. So I'd have like a whole, it's like a web, right? It's like a web, like a concept web. I'm not actually sure what that type of organizer is called, but it's like everything's joined like a web. So you can essentially see like what ties into what. And that was the way I was doing it, and I thought it was fantastic, which, you know, I haven't actually seen, like, which ones are good to use. I think might be personal preference and stuff, which is easy for you to understand. That's besides the point. So none of this actually applied to anything that I was doing progress-wise. So I'd write this stuff down, but I would never really get into doing anything that was, like, written down there, which, if this is something that, this is an experience you could relate to, which I'm sure it is, because like nobody's unique anymore. I don't think anybody. That's like a whole different topic. But we are unique, but experiences are very, very much shared. Very much shared. Even then, like we're pretty similar. Pretty similar. If you're here, if you're watching this, we're similar. I can guarantee that. I can guarantee that. But yeah, none of that translated into any sort of progress. So I see a lot of, for example, I'm gonna put the example of Hamza, right? Put him as an example. He often mentions, it's like this whole analogy where it's like, where he uses goals and systems, and the analogy is you driving to a certain location, so the destination would be the goal, and then you actually driving over there would be the system. And he says that, like, what he says, right? Correct me if, you know, I misinterpreted or whatever, because that might happen. But essentially, it's you can't, like, you don't start driving without knowing your destination. Which makes sense, right? It makes sense, sure it does, right? But I think I don't quite agree with that. I agree with the concept, but I don't think like, I don't believe that myself or anybody that really that's similar to me, right, would be able to use that concept and then run with it, right? Because a lot of what's I mentioned before, the whole goals web thing, and how that never really translated into progress, because I was doing it in a way that was like, I thought I was doing progress by actually setting the goals, which in a way, yes, but not really. It's like, I'm gonna throw this analogy out there, might be wrong, we'll see. It's like you thinking about taking a step. So you thought about it, right? So you're almost there, but you haven't actually taken the step. You haven't like actually walked, or you haven't like actually moved your foot yet, right? That's essentially what I take it as, right? But I think it's better for some people, for me, people similar to me, to move the foot first, right? Move the foot first, and then think about moving it. Right? Because essentially, I think a lot more progress is made when you struggle with actually making progress. A lot more progress is made when you focus not on where you're going, but on what you're doing. All right. For example, I'm gonna get into like the whole where does goals fit into this, because it certainly does, but not at the start. I do not believe that if you are starting something for either the first time or you're struggling to start something, your first focus should be goals. I entirely believe that is the wrong way of going about it, right? I believe that actually doing whatever you do first and then figuring out what the goal is actually the right way of doing it. I say right way, but it's my way. I'm gonna say my way, because that's the way I do it, right? Because it's essentially, if you struggle to move your foot, like to actually move the foot and not to think, because I think it's a lot easier for you to think of moving the foot than to actually move it. So if you get the moving part out of the way, you get the easy part, which is trying to, well, I say easy, but like, you know what I mean. You get the part, like you start working towards the part where it's like actually thinking, right? Which, I mean, if you can if people can write goals, right, and it's relatively easy compared to actually doing it, or, you know, like, I don't know, making a business plan compared to actually making the business, right? If you get let me not even get into that, because let me use a different example, right? So I'd say, let's go with exercise, right? There's a certain amount of research, there's a certain amount of like goal setting that you have to do, but it's very, 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 very basic compared to what other people do. So what other people do is, let's say for example you wanted to start exercise. So you people, I'm gonna say myself, because this is how I did it before, right? So I used to think, okay, so let me see, let's say I want like 10 out of 10. I want like a 10 out of 10 physique, right? So what I would do is take like that web structure and start looking like, oh my God, there was a point when I was even looking at like all the distinct muscles. It was crazy, bro. I don't know what kind of shit I was on. I'd never gone to a gym like by myself without a trainer or anything. So yeah, I used like this web structure, and I was like linking all the muscles and how to hit them and, you know, whatever the fuck. But I had made zero progress prior to that. So while it's not necessarily a bad thing to be setting goals, it needs to be really basic at the start so you can focus more on actually doing it. So for example, if you were starting exercise, you start like something really basic. I don't know. If you want to gain weight, just eat more. Like very, very basic. Just eat more. You eat more, you start eating more, and then you start sharpening the goal. You start like, you know, like sharpening a blade. You just start sharpening the goal. And you make it like more sharp. sharpier. Make it sharpier. We spitting tonight. Okay, you make it like sharper and sharper the more you actually, take it and you try hone it and whatever, and try to make that goal more specific the more you learn. But you have to start like really, 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 really basic when it comes to doing this stuff. Like, I don't know, you want bigger muscles, so you have to do like exercise, right? That's like the really basic, not science. You don't need like scientific. You can get into. I'm not saying disregard it. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying that wait. Up until doing the most basic thing isn't like an issue, because that's the thing. Myself, I would find the most basic thing the issue, and then actually getting into it is like where I struggle the most. And it's not actually looking up the information or whatever. It's I could look up the information, right? Perfect. But I'm not doing anything with that information. It could be the most specific information. It could be how I can attain the best physique, and is it could be the Krabby Patty secret formula. But if I struggle to apply the most basic thing, then how am I going to apply the most complicated thing? And that's exactly what I want to get into, or what I was getting into. If you can't do the most basic thing, right, for the most basic goal, how do you expect to do the most complicated thing for the most complicated? The more complicated your goal, the more complicated things you're going to have to do to reach it. I wish I said this earlier, because this is essentially like the whole thing. So start really basic, start with a really basic goal, and start sharpen the goal and be more specific the more you progress. Not necessarily something that you have to start doing right off the bat, because then you aren't gonna get shit done, right? Unless you're built different, because this really just applies to me. So for example, right now, I did the most basic thing, which first off, it was like actually going and doing exercise and like hopping on the treadmill or whatever. That's the most basic. You do that. You all you need to do is know how to walk to hop on a treadmill. That's you need to know how to walk, and you already know you know how to walk, right? So you just hop on a treadmill, walk, go back home. The most basic for the most basic. If you can't do that, then there's no point looking up how to get a 10 out of 10 physique. There's zero. If you cannot hop on a treadmill, listen, if you cannot hop on a treadmill and do treadmill activity, and if you cannot hop on a treadmill and do that, there is no reason for you to be looking up how to get a 10 out of 10 physique. There is no reason. If you cannot hop on a treadmill, if you struggle to hop on a treadmill, do not look up how to get a 10 out of 10 physique. Do not. There's no point. Set your goal to be hop on the treadmill. Right? Most simple thing for the most simple goal. Or like, no, not the goal go on the treadmill. The goal would be like lose weight. Goal would be lose weight. It's not necessarily a simple goal. Like the wording is really tricky there. It's not a simple goal. It can be, right? It can be, well, okay, I'm not gonna get into that, but you probably understand what I mean, right? It's not like you're not overcomplicating the system that goes into it, because losing weight can be more than like, it can be trickier than like a basic goal. The basic isn't really the right word. It's like basic system for a general goal. I don't know what the actual wording, but you probably understand what I mean at this point. If you're like 14 minutes in, you probably understand what I mean. So yeah, that is essentially it. That is how I'm doing it. So then progressively, like for example, started off with the treadmill, right? I got the opportunity to work with somebody like a trainer at the first day, which I think I benefited, but I also didn't benefit. since I overcomplicated it, and I didn't go for like 2 weeks after that, which is really weird. Cause I don't know, I felt like I had to do like something similar when I came back, which is kind of weird thinking back, but that was essentially what I was thinking. But yeah, alright. And then progressively went, so then I started looking into what I was actually gonna do, right? What machines I was gonna hit, how to hit them. But it was like four machines, like 3-4 machines per day, right? So then I went and did those, right? Boom, bada bang. So that's covered. And now I'm actually writing down. Actually didn't write down 2 machines, so I'm gonna write that after this because I forgot. But speaking about it now, I actually remembered. So I'm writing down the amount that I hit on each machine, like sets and reps, sets, reps, and weight. So I can actually know how much I have to hit for the next. Right? So that's my way of advancing through it. The first thing was just go to the place, apply, hit the treadmill for a bit, look up what I'm actually gonna do. You know, like you progressively sharpen the goal until you get to where you want to be. Yes, 16 minutes is a long one, but that is essentially it. That's essentially how I go about doing most of my stuff, and it's pretty much worked. I've yet to actually consider goals for a couple things, but for example, editing, I don't exactly know what the final goal is gonna be. I don't know what the actual specific goal right now is. Just like learn to edit, that's the goal. But I want to like sharpen the goal bit by bit, so I can know exactly what I'm gonna be hitting and whatever. But that's going pretty well. I have 23 streams so far. Me like hopping on and doing that, learning, which adds up in the end. I'll continue to add up, because that's how it is when you focus on systems and not goals. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Peace.